Hey, what's happening, DM? Hello. Yo, man, what is happening with that new Star Wars game? Oh, yes. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be open world and very huge and expansive, filled with amazing locations from all of your favorite Star Wars movies, and characters you've grown to love, and even some new ones. It'll be an amazing space adventure, and it will rival some of the best video games in the Star Wars license you've ever played. It's going to be awesome. But DM, that game just got canceled. What? Yeah, man. No, it didn't. Oh, it got canceled. Here, check it out. Anyway, with that fun stuff behind us, let's go ahead and talk about this really sad and depressing story about Electronic Arts canceling yet another amazing looking game and another game in the Star Wars franchise that a lot of us have been dying to play. We've been drowning in a sea of no Star Wars games, and they've canceled the open world game that was initially being created by Visceral Studios along with Amy Hennig, previously of Uncharted fame, and then they closed down Visceral Studios. They changed that game, which was going to be a linear Uncharted kind of experience in the Star Wars universe, over to this new open world thing that was going to probably be some sort of microtransaction filled kind of experience anyway, but we were all still curious, and now all of a sudden, that's gone. So this is pretty depressing news, and it's kind of ironic because I'm actually, in a weird way, excited to be able to talk about a Star Wars game just because it gives me reason to talk about Star Wars again. You guys probably know that for a while I was actually doing some Star Wars movie-related videos for a period last year, and that was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it because I love Star Wars more than anything video gaming. But it didn't really seem to make a whole lot of sense for the channel. I built Rule of Two Review pretty much on YouTube as a gaming-focused and a Nintendo-focused kind of thing, and so as much as I loved having those conversations, I kind of got away from the Star Wars movie stuff, and maybe I'll find a way to bring it back. But when it comes to the gaming side, talking about Star Wars and video games together normally is like my greatest joy. It's the #1 thing I'd always want to do. But we're talking about, unfortunately, more bad news. I think the last couple of times I talked about Star Wars in gaming, it's almost always been bad news, and that's just kind of the state of things. Because as we all know, Star Wars in the video game world is still locked under the mighty death grasp of EA. So, like the whole intro of this video laid out, Visceral Games' Star Wars game, which was supposed to be some sort of linear story-based, character-centric kind of experience, and it was revealed a couple of years ago, has recently been canceled. And of course, the path of that game is unique because it was initially given to Visceral Studios, and then Amy Hennig, who worked for Naughty Dog and on some of the Uncharted games, had moved from Naughty Dog over to Electronic Arts, and was leading the Visceral team in the development of this game. And it sounded great. It was everything we all wanted. At the time, we only had EA's first Battlefront, which is okay. I actually did enjoy that game in a lot of ways. And we had not yet had Battlefront 2, which started off horribly and is actually also turned into really a pretty fun game, even though it took a long time to get there. But then last year, very famously, EA, out of nowhere, closed down Visceral Studios, which is a loss not just because of the Star Wars game, but also because Visceral Studios has made some great stuff in the past. I mean, they're most well known for today for making the Dead Space trilogy, and those first two games are incredible. Dead Space 3 was kind of whatever, but the first two games were so good, and it was going to be great seeing that team come to a Star Wars universe game and work with somebody who is so good at directing, you know, character-centric and story-centric games, and just bring this all together and make this cool Star Wars adventure that we were all excited for. But they closed Visceral Studios, and then the game, after Amy Hennig left, of course, the game apparently pivoted from the linear story-based game she was going to make it into this new open world kind of thing. And like I alluded to a couple of minutes ago here, my assumption, and I think some other people's assumption as well, is that when they did that, it was probably EA trying to EA-ify this game, because a linear story-based Star Wars game that might play like an Uncharted, for example, would be something that maybe EA sees as something that they can't further monetize, and they can't charge everyone $60 to buy the game and then another $10 a month for the next million years, you know, buying new lightsabers and new blasters and new shoes and just new whatever. And I'm willing to bet that they wanted to change the game from that into this open world thing, and my guess is that they were probably trying to turn it into something sort of like a Destiny experience, which is also ironic because since then we've also seen the reveal of Anthem, which is definitely EA's response to Destiny. And I do actually think Anthem looks pretty good. I'm excited to try it. But trying to force that into the Star Wars world was definitely going to be frustrating, and considering the fact they already tried that with the launch of Battlefront 2 before everyone caught on and called them out on it, I mean, no one really would have been surprised. And so even with the unfortunate closure of Visceral Games, we at least still had the hope of this game releasing and turning into something good. Yes, some of us had the cynical viewpoint of, well, they're just going to make it like a microtransactions Destiny kind of game, but we still had reason to hold out hope. It was a new Star Wars game, we all want more Star Wars content to play, and so it was exciting to know that that was being made alongside of the game that Respawn is making, which we now know is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which I am super excited for based on concept alone. Obviously, I'm nervous about that game simply because of Electronic Arts, but as far as what the game has been described to us as, it sounds amazing. And so we had that game, Jedi Fallen Order, and this open world game that was Visceral Studios and is now EA Vancouver's, but here comes today's news that basically confirms, and this is courtesy of Kotaku and Jason Schreier, by the way, that the game is canceled. So suddenly, one of the few last remaining hopes for Star Wars video game content we had in the middle of this horrible 10-year EA Star Wars drought has been stripped away from us. It's gone, we don't know what happened, and we just apparently have to wait and find out what the hell EA is going to do with Star Wars. And I guess you could say this hasn't yet been 100% confirmed because, you know, Kotaku basically said that, hey, this is what we're being told by sources close to the project, and both Kotaku and IGN have reached out to EA and have not got comments back. So, okay, maybe there's a slight glimmer of hope that EA says, oh, hold your horses, this game is still being made, and we're going to share details soon, it's not canceled. And that would be great news, and then I'd probably, you know, make another video talking about, hey, I was incorrect, so let's talk about that. But everything seems to be pointing towards this game being canceled. Most big sites that are talking about it like it's official without having been confirmed as official for whatever it's worth. And so it just kind of leaves us wondering what the hell is happening with Star Wars and video games, man. And, you know, I've talked about this before, and I even tweeted about it today when this news broke, that Star Wars in video games used to be one of the most lucrative and awesome and prolific franchises because there was always new content and new stuff coming out for all sorts of platforms, consoles, handhelds, and PC. In the George Lucas and LucasArts era, Star Wars and video games were awesome. They were a wonderful marriage of ideas and entertainment, and those of us that are both gamers and also Star Wars nerds had a lot of stuff to play, especially during the 6th gen. Oh my goodness, that was an awesome, awesome time. So many games on the GameCube, PlayStation 2, and the original Xbox that were Star Wars, covering original trilogy and prequel trilogy at that time, and even some of the stuff back in the PS1 and the N64 days, old PC games like Star Wars Galaxies and all these X-Wing, TIE Fighter, or X-Wing and TIE Fighter, those were different games, Dark Forces, Jedi Outcast, the whole Jedi Academy series. I mean, there's so many things going on that were great back in the day. And nowadays, since, you know, George Lucas retires, sells Lucasfilm to Disney, Disney gives EA 10 years of Star Wars licensing rights, Disney closes down LucasArts, and here we are, almost 6 years into this EA Star Wars, you know, licensing deal, and we've had two mostly mediocre Battlefront games that rely solely on online play, and whereas the second game tried to gouge the gamer with a bunch of microtransactions until we caught that, called them out on it, and they fixed it. And again, I will admit, have since improved the game, and it is a good game I play from time to time. But it obviously isn't what it was supposed to be, and we're not seeing the kind of Star Wars content that truly should be being made. I mean, and this doesn't come from a place of entitlement, it comes from a place of standard and expectation and legacy, because the legacy of Star Wars video games has always been very strong, and there's always been a lot to play and a lot of creativity going into these games, and nowadays we got nothing. And so what the hell is EA doing at this point? I don't know, man. I don't think anyone knows. And I have a lot of fear when it comes to this Fallen Order game because it's right now scheduled to be this year, 2019. There is no way in hell that game is going to come out this year. That's just not going to happen. They haven't showed us anything. They haven't even showed us official concept art. And the freaking reveal of that game was the worst, most awkward, horrible E3 moment I've seen in the last 10 years, with Vince Zampella awkwardly talking to Andrea Renee in the seats where the crowd was, and he was so strange and awkward and secretive about stupid things about this game. And it's just so frustrating to me the way Star Wars games have been treated the last 5 years under EA in the Disney era. And I'm not trying to hate on Disney exactly, and I mean, I have problems with Disney and Lucasfilm, but overall, it's fine, and I don't want to go into that, you guys. That's a movie conversation I could have in a different video. I don't want to get into this, but I do have to say, in the Disney era, where things, in my opinion, are not nearly as good as they were in the George Lucas era, this whole video game conundrum is just a perfect example of how things are weird. And I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I'm the biggest Star Wars fan. I care about it the most in my life as far as entertainment properties go. And I just want to see it go back to its former glory. There's literally no excuse for how poorly it's been handled and how few games and how little content we've been getting since this happened. And this is just, you know, I don't want to say it's the final straw. We'll say it's the latest mistake in a long line and string of mistakes. Closing Visceral, getting rid of Amy Hennig, doing the weird things with their 2 new Battlefront games. I mean, pivoting from a single-player game we all wanted to this weird open-world game that, for all we know, is going to be a microtransaction nightmare, and then having us wait for Fallen Order because we don't know what's going on. It's just bad. And even closing LucasArts, that was the first bad thing, which, to be fair, was Disney, not EA, but still a problem. I mean, so, I don't know. I guess I just really needed to rant. This is one of those few instances where I wanted to turn on the camera and literally just rant into this microphone to you guys about why this is so frustrating and why it's a problem, and also just talk to you about the news of this game being canceled until EA gives us a more official comment on what's actually happening and the status of that game. But I don't think any of us really expect them to tell us that everything is hunky-dory with that title. It's probably gone for good because they don't know what they're doing. Anyway, that's what I have to say about that. I only have a few opinions, obviously, on Star Wars video games. So talk to me about it, man. What do you guys think? Do you think this is as bad as I do? Do you think it's maybe not as bad as it seems? Are you patient and willing to wait and see what happens? Or do you think that it's just a bad situation all around and it's messy and EA is just not the right company to be handling Star Wars right now? Tell me what you think. Share your opinions below. And that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in. This is Rob of Ro2R Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.